Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, the regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me this afternoon, we have former chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, Representative Patrick McHenry, now serving as the vice chair of Ondo Finance. During his career in Congress, the chairman was focused on modernizing financial regulations to keep pace with technological advancements. He introduced major legislation to create a balanced regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. We also have Zach Nunn. He's the U.S. representative for Iowa's 3rd Congressional District. Congressman Nunn, a 20-plus year veteran of the Air Force with expertise in intelligence and currently serves as a colonel in the Air Reserves. He previously served as the White House Director of Cybersecurity at the National Security Council and is a member of the Four Country Caucus, which unites Afghan and Iraq war veterans across party lines who are serving in Congress to foster collaboration on security and financial issues among allied nations. It is an honor to have the both of you with us. We're going to discuss the future of digital assets, crypto regulation and policy, as well as the importance of national security in financial innovation. Mr. Chairman, it's an honor to have you with us. I'm going to kick this off with you. When you think about what innovation looks like in the global capital markets and positioning the U.S. as a leader, where do the priorities lie?
Well, first, for the world of crypto, everything changed with the election. That is you can't underline that fact more. With the leadership of Congress, and pleased to be joined with Zach, my friend and colleague, former colleague. But the leadership in Congress is there on a bipartisan basis, and the administration is really deeply engaged in digital assets and crypto policymaking. That is a welcome thing from the regulators, but truly the lasting impact is going to be in sound legislation making its way into law that will bring crypto back on shore. And then we're going to see the broad deployment of this technology across financial markets in a real and substantive way.
Yeah. And Congressman Nunn, as always, thank you for your service. And I want to discuss security within financial innovation. We understand what the promise is, what the infrastructure looks like, the progress that's being made on a policy and legislation front. But we also have to think cyber first or cyber by design as these kinds of technologies emerge.
Jill, I think you're laying out a really good roadmap here, and candidly, one that President Trump has already marched out aggressively on with David Sachs in crypto as well as AI, bringing these two together, highlighting security. But it really builds off, and I want to compliment our former chairman here, Patrick McHenry's view of what we can do starting in the area of providing some really safe guidelines for how we can do things like American-backed stable coins smartly in the United States. As a result, the matriculation of Patrick's hard work came to fruition here just this month when we were able to bring on board the House Ag, the House Financial Services, as well as Senate Ag and Financial Services to start moving forward, and the House passed our Stablecoin Act. Not only does this provide a smart, roadmap ahead for what we can do here, it pairs what I've led and just passed unanimously, I'll add, the Financial Technology Protection Act to really say, how do we bring in smart stakeholders so that we can onshore digital assets here in the United States, but then make sure that the Department of Justice, our intelligence agencies, and our State Department are also ensuring that American-backed stablecoins can't be used for those nefarious purposes that we're seeing funding terrorist regimes and cells out of Iran, being offshored into Russia, or being manipulated by what were known as the Chinese digital yuan trying to compete with us in this space.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, let's talk about tokenization and its impact on traditional finance. Where is the opportunity there? How does this change how we know traditional capital markets in the U.S. as it stands today?
Well, there's $64 trillion in global equities that can be brought on chain. The first initiative from Ondo is to take treasuries and put them on chain. And look, I joined Ondo because they were best in class at the technology of tokenization and bringing tokenization of real world assets. I think this is the early case where we have a software enhancement. Frankly, this is not a revolution when it comes to the world of real world assets. It's an evolution. And the evolution is using the best software to bring down the cost and enhance the distribution. Blockchain technology does that. And there are going to be a lot of winners in this space generally, but the winner is going to be the public getting access to more investment opportunities and doing it at a reduced cost. That's a great societal benefit of tokenization. And I think that's the reason why it's going to be the early stage of regulatory changes in the deployment of blockchain technology, crypto generally.
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly does address one of those challenges when you think about advancing regulatory frameworks. From the technical side, you also want to make sure that the tokenization of assets seamlessly integrates when you're marrying TradFi and DeFi. That's one of the challenges that need to be addressed as well.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And I think the clear thing we need from right now is clarity of law to make it clear that in the United States, digital assets are here to stay. And then from the regulators, we need the regulators to move, as the Securities Exchange Commission has done actively, even before Paul Atkins was confirmed as chair of the SEC. They're actively working to provide clarity so that you can do the normal deployment of new software that the Gensler regime and the Biden administration inhibited for their 4 years of power.
Yeah. Well, Congressman Nunn, the role of blockchain in enhancing security inherently, it has that characteristic that can help to bolster security and transparency in the financial sector as that's the technology that is building the infrastructure of the digital economy.
Yeah, Jill, I mean, we really have the opportunity here in the United States, and as Patrick's lined out here, through blockchain to expand on what this security is going to look like. But I'm also going to caution, coming from our cybersecurity background on this, we saw Chinese companies like Huawei, they just rebranded themselves Huawei America as a way to get into our telco infrastructure. That was back during the Obama administration. I want to make sure that we've got a clean pathway here to make sure that blockchain not only is made in the US, but is the guardrails for the entire world when we start building this digital infrastructure. China is currently aggressively playing in the blockchain space. They're in some areas moving even quicker than we are. We put together a bill called the Clarity Act, which really highlights we need to have a comprehensive government approach to this with our private sector partners, building a blockchain first model that ensures not only for our financial sector, but data is becoming the new gold rush, as it were. We've got to make sure that we've got this underpinned right here in the United States in order for it not only to be successful for every user, but to make sure that our adversaries aren't building the rails in which this is going to ride on and could steal that, shut it down, or corrupt it at any moment, which becomes a real concern. And I will say, we've got some best practices we took from both the cybersecurity, the telco world. Let's certainly apply it to digital assets.
Yeah, that's the key point here when you think about your call to action is to prioritize security within the enterprise, even within the government, where you have that cybersecurity first or by design culture. It starts at the top. As you're integrating your design plan, your engineering plans, and so forth. And I think it really is going to come from your private-public partnerships, your PPPs. And I think understanding the audience that you're talking to, whether it's the practitioner, a policymaker, legal experts, government officials, that you really need that buy-in, and it has to come from the top, whether it's enterprise or government, for that cyber-first culture.
Well, and Jill, I'd also add the taxpayer alone can't be on the hook to do all of this. Look, we've got some great industry partners here who are the real innovators, the drivers of this, but this has got to be an all hands on deck approach across government and across, as you noted, our private sector and our allies on this. We want to have a trusted venue in which we can operate with some of our most sensitive data, and candidly, the Americans' financial future rests on this. So the infrastructure can come from a number of sources on this. The technology is already being developed everywhere from Silicon Valley in the West to Tel Aviv in the East. Working together on this, we have the ability to drive a really robust and sustainable and candidly affordable blockchain model here. But we've got to watch what's coming over the horizon here. There's a couple of countries who've already come together on this. You can see them right now: Russia, Iran, North Korea, all underpinning what China is doing in this area here. So we don't want a two-tier system here. We want a good system that's solid, and that's the one being led in the U.S. right now.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, are we too far behind some of our adversaries? What does the time frame, or do we have the ability to catch up and retain that competitive position that we have?
Congressman Nunn has the right perspective here. Look, we got to go catch up to the rest of the world here. And America gives a great benefit to the whole world if we lead in technology. And American leadership in technology means we have a rules-based regime and speech rights embedded into the product, embedded into the technology. That is good for the globe. That is good for human rights. That's good for human dignity. And inevitably, that makes it good for economic growth and the well-being of the globe. So for us to get this right means that we have to have sound law and good regulation. And the faster Congress can actually get a market structure bill done for digital assets, really, like think of this in the securities realm as a 33 and 34 Act wrapped into one. That bill is called FIT 21 in the House, and French Hill is the chair of the Financial Services Committee, who's the driving force of this initiative. I think it's a good product, and they're going to come up with sound policy that will benefit Americans for coming generations. The faster we get on with that, the better it's going to be, and the better that impact's going to be globally. And we do have to catch up. Europe is ahead of us. China's ahead of us. Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore all have better regimes as well as the Europeans than we currently do here in the United States. So that clarity will enhance consumer protection, obviously, but also the development of these technologies and bringing capital in.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it from the economic perspective, which, both sides of the aisle can certainly agree on here, when you have access to financial services, that also helps to open up what happens in microeconomies, local economies, and so forth. And it just gets recirculated back into the system. It helps you to derive other forms of capital formation. And that's where you start to see that circular economy concept come in.
That's right. I mean, that's the real impact of these technologies is what it enables and what it opens up. To bring down the cost of payments, to bring down the cost of the movement of ideas, it's hugely powerful. And to actually have technology that moves value at the speed of the internet is its own dramatic innovation. And we're going to be the beneficiaries of it.
Yeah. Well, Congressman, it's interesting if we do get regulation around this and legislation that provides that framework. I'm curious to see if other areas such as cybersecurity, AI, updating privacy law, and so forth, if it will take pieces of that and implement it into those frameworks that certainly do need updating as well.
Yeah, Jill, Patrick was kind enough when he was chairman to put me on his artificial intelligence working group. And the financial services has really been a first shooter in this space for adopting new technologies. They're also financially incentivized, right? If you're able to use AI effectively in this space, you're going to have a massive market advantage in this space. Equally, what we're seeing is that in order for us to be not only first shooter in the use of technology, we've got to have policies that keep up with it. And I'll be very candid. We can train the workforce here in America. We can have the innovation. God bless, and Patrick knows this better than anybody, both as chairman and for a stint as Speaker of the House. The policy is always the hardest part to get across the finish line, and making sure that we do it in a timely and effective way to really ensure that our American-based innovators get the opportunity to play in this space. Because candidly, from a national security perspective, the adversary has central control and central execution. And when places like China are turning out a data center almost on a monthly basis here, they've got the energy, the infrastructure, they're going to have a potential real leg up on us when it comes to utilizing artificial intelligence. We've already seen it with DeepSeek now, a cheaper, less expensive version to run, but still highly effective in the execution piece of this. If the United States is lagging behind on things like digital assets, where we've ceded space to both allies and adversaries, but also where we're still just trying to get what I think the president has teed up as three very important things here: the energy to do it, the infrastructure to execute it, and the workforce to be able to maintain an artificial intelligence advantage. We can't just lead ahead like in a track meet. We've got a sprint car ahead of our adversaries, or they're just going to draft in our wake and potentially overtake us when we're not paying attention.
Yeah, and I'll take the running analogy even a step further. It's a marathon, as you know, with cybersecurity and incident response planning. It's something that's constantly ongoing. So it's not as if we have this policy, put this innovation in place, and set it and forget it. So to wrap up here, Mr. Chairman, in terms of timing, what do you think is realistic when we will get a more central framework in place here?
Oh, I think we're talking weeks and months, not a year. I think the president has a huge priority in getting a digital asset bill signed into law this summer. And I know from what I hear from my former colleagues that they are working really intensely hard on the policy. I think the president's going to get a bill signed into law before the end of the summer on market structure. And that is really fast. That's quite ambitious, and really proud of the policymakers on a bipartisan basis that are trying to make that happen.
Yeah, I think this is a case of policy, not necessarily politics, which is encouraging to see being executed on. Appreciate both of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.